Today is Sunday, not Saturday. I'm usually out on Saturdays. Today, due to some life issues yesterday, I didn't get out. I needed a locksmith, and that ate up my morning, so I'm out today. A long story short. Got some things to cover today. We're also going to head into an area near the Tribog area in Connecticut to follow up on an odd find from 2 weeks ago. Not really sure what it is, but I'm curious if there's any new activity with it. So we're going to see if it's a pattern or just a one-off odd find in the middle of nowhere, relatively speaking. So that is the plan for this morning. And there's a little bit of gossip to cover too. So let's get moving, get into all of that, and we'll see where we are at the end. So that's going to be it. We're going to get moving. First segment in. Try that again. We'll do our first segment here in a kind of thinking place location, the gossip piece. So by now people have heard that Steve Kulls is claiming he has some kind of a find. The insinuation is something related to DNA and eDNA, and just within the last 2 days, he put out a semi-retraction. Not saying that that he doesn't have something, but more like he had maybe jumped the gun and can't come out with information a little too soon, and there was resulting scuttlebutt and people effectively sticking their bleeping noses into his business without really knowing anything, which is unfortunately one of the downsides of the community. I've actually seen people try to stick their nose aggressively into a situation that had nothing to do with them, because I mean, my personal feeling is there are some people out there that are so, what's the right word? They are so invested in the subject for a period of time long enough, they feel entitled that if something is going to come down the pike that actually has that compelling piece of evidence for the decade, they have a right or a need to have their name attached to it in some way, any way they can, which is bullshit. If I ever come into a situation remotely close to what Kulls has or something like that, do understand I'm going to be quiet about it. Until the science is done and the scientific stuff is done and it's all written up and you have the dotted I's and the crossed T's and all that, I'm not going to say a word, because too many people will interfere. It sounds paranoid, but it's already happened. If you have the next great hoax, you had the Daisy in a Clamshell one, you had this onboarding committee thing that, as much as he now says he busted it as a hoax and all that, Mr. Lee, guy that I was kind of like I'm not going to say speaking ill of, just basically revealing the actual nature of some history from Bigfooting, circa 2013 or so, he was the one organizing the onboarding committee. He was the one giving the play-by-play. He was neck deep in this thing. He didn't bust shit. He was one of the ones left with egg on his face, and then, we busted. No, you didn't. You didn't bust shit. You were an active participant in this damn thing. The nerve of him to try to claim credit for something like that when he... Anyway, I'm not going to go back through that. It's a matter that Steve is a person who in the community, because his main shtick is hoax busting, does have credibility with a great many people. So I would hate to see him jump into something too quickly, have it turn out to be nothing, but he built it up too much and then get burned by it. So it's a good thing, excuse me, it's a good thing that he actually kind of hit the brakes and pulled the reins in a little bit and said, science takes time, so let's let things run their course, and then we'll know what he has or not. But the sad commentary on some level is that all this scuttlebutt he's hinting at, alluding to, if you will, is indicative of the parasitic nature of a good segment of the community's population, for reasons I just went into. The other bit of scuttlebutt, since that's the word of the morning, kind of like the ongoing thing I was ranting about last week, which is the ongoing Jason Miller, and I guess the guy that does tall ones is now being pulled into the mix because there was a claim or not a claim of stolen valor on the part of Jason Miller, who is a researcher claiming to have a 5-star reputation based on I don't know the guy from a hole in the wall, so based on I don't really know what. But he has kind of found himself in a little bit of controversy. But the real takeaway of that mess, I think, is beware of Randy Harrington as much as Darren Lee. Because Darren Lee is bad-mouthing Randy Harrington in this because they have bad blood. This I know for a fact. There was a post in a Facebook group from, I could be wrong in the number, I'm going to say 3 years ago, where Randy Harrington momentarily seemed a bit righteous because he was serving up the tea on the MABRC, the former group that he had left. Basically saying that 99.9% of everything they've ever done was a hoax. And I could have told you that, but he knows the details. He was there, he knows the details. Now, amusingly enough, tragically enough, depending on how you look at it, who you know, you like in the community, Darren is pointing the finger the other way and accusing Randy of hoaxing on the same level. So the bigger question becomes, who amongst your circle is not hoaxing? Seems to be a lot less migraine inducing if we just cover this from the short list version. Because this is why, crap like this is why people in the mainstream are never going to take the subject seriously. It's why I've become so much more skeptical of online claims, because of bullshit like this. I think I alluded to last episode, a person I know I've been out in the woods with personally a few times, briefly allowed himself to be involved in this 400, I'll call it a project that he and Shane Carpenter and Randy Harrington were involved with. This guy doesn't really have a high opinion of Randy Harrington at this point, from what I've heard from him directly. And the sad thing there again, Shane Carpenter, I don't know personally. Randy Harrington, I've observed over time enough to be dubious of him. And each one is claiming that the other fucked them over in the course of the falling apart of the 400 debacle. And I believe them both. One is pointing the finger at the other, and the motivation was money. I don't know, and I don't really necessarily care what Harrington's motive was. Apparently Carpenter's was money. I don't know, but one more example of a bunch of bullshit that was basically fishing towards, I don't know, a documentary or something maybe, who knows. But it's yet another example of online drama that ends in finger pointing and nothing else. That's why, no offense to Mr. Culls with his situation, I'm not going to lend an opinion to the matter. I think we all hope in principle that he comes up with something. But I've just learned from over time, you just kind of have to let these things play out. And in the end, it'll be what it is. Because he's already, in his defense, making allowances for the fact the DNA may get degraded through mishandling, which happens a lot, unfortunately. Hopefully he, as taken the right steps. He's certainly somebody with enough field experience to do so. And hopefully that'll turn out with a result that's different from every single effing example before them. It would be nice to have some compelling evidence for a bit. But there's a weird little formation. But you'll find out over time as that plays out. I have talked to him once personally, if nothing else, be nosy and kind of feel out what he's willing to share, and he was pretty limited in what he was going to share, so it's probably young in the process yet, and it's his situation, not mine, so I'll leave that where it is. Again, we'll let it play out. We're heading kind of slowly and methodically towards the find I had last week, which is kind of just something odd. I have a theory about it that points towards humans, but what I find or don't find today is going to kind of either nix that or not. But unfortunately, it's going to probably end up remaining a mystery and nothing else. Sorry, I have an itch, a cough/itch. Anyway, we're going to take a segment break and cover some ground, because our order of business is heading in over that way, jumping the stream, returning to the scene of kind of a weird
we've
find.
covered a
Little ground. We are moving into an area where the other week, we'll see if there are any changes to the situation. Encountered kind of an odd scene of stacked pine cones. Not really sure what to make of it, but anyway, we'll be back in a bit when we get there. It could well be nothing, but they weren't just randomly falling there. There were piles of pine cones, and it is this stone wall or one nearby, because it was in that terrain over there, and the logic behind the stacking is just curious to me. And it could be nothing, but it's also not looking the same because we had a lot of wind come through here, and that might have also disturbed the scene. The one possible human-related explanation for that would be people could actually be stacking them up as fire tinder, but then it kind of raises the question, why wouldn't they have carted it off for that? Why leave it here? But I have to find the scene again. If they did cart it off, then that kind of answers the question to a degree. And that is the operating theory right now, that your culprits for the weirdness is effectively humans. You're far out in the middle of nowhere, sort of, but not really so far out that they're not your likely contender. That being said, there has been activity sporadically in the area too, so who knows. I do know, however, pine cones to a human being, while they are technically edible, number one, are going to do nothing good to your digestive tract, number one, and number two, have absolutely, positively zero nutritional value. I'm going to go on this side, because that looks all chewed up. And there's an empty spot in the stone wall right here. Now, if I don't find them and they're gone, that is going to point to humans and the fire tinder theory. It was kind of a strange find, and since a lot of other things have been quiet this year, it's not on the same level as Cull's potential find, but it's enough to play with to have my curiosity for at least one visit out and see what we have. And I'm not seeing another stone wall, so I'm guessing it was this one. They were piled up right against it in an adjoining area. I'm just not finding it. Which, if they were taken, there you go. That might be your answer. Which is probably also good that I took pictures of the thing when I did find it. But I'm looking on the other side because that's where they were, but like right up against the area occupied by the fence. I'm not seeing them. You have a fence over there too, so I don't remember a junction. We'll walk down the hill and we'll cross over and see if there's another junction, but it doesn't seem like there is. I'll hop this, pop over there, and then look on the other side too. If it's not there, then they've been moved, it would seem. Still doesn't really explain why they were left, though. I can hop right there. I'm just going to walk to the end of the fence and see the stone wall. I guess stone wall is a better term, but to see if there's any sign. It doesn't look like it, though. So, and it was definitely the section that was paralleling the wetland over the hill over there. As I fart. Shit. Oh well. Let's we are through that, and so far there's a big laurel patch over
no
there.
pine cones.
So than I found further past where I was like a big
found
there were like 3 different piles. The pictures I took a few weeks ago. I'm going to take a very quick segment break, so I have hands free to get over this and then navigate that, and then I'm going to start looking for the cones again. They were right along this part of the wall. And if they are still around, we would be within 50 feet or so of them in this general stretch of area, which is what I'm specifically looking for. I'm just not finding them, which would indicate they were taken. So if that plays out that way, that could be your answer. However, not done looking yet. I'm basing this all off of a thing I saw where there was a guy showing a tutorial on how to use pine cones for fire tinder, and I always knew it was kind of theoretically possible, but come to find out they actually burn pretty good for a short period of time. So not so much like your main fire, but they are actually usable as like fire starter, kind of like those chaga looking mushrooms are. I'm going to go down along that and then walk back up. I'm just hoping that they weren't disturbed by, because there was a windstorm that came through during the week when I was away, and when we were in Vermont. I'm just wondering if it dropped a bunch of wood on top of the whole thing and it's just not being found for that reason, or somebody came in and took them. I suppose something could too, but that makes less sense. Because it would be, these were sizable piles, so it would have been, if somebody's gathering them up for whatever reason, it's like people. So I'm going to look over here. If there's nothing along the stretch, I'm going to walk this little deadfall line down there and back, just to make sure that I don't miss any piece of this. I don't know if those are fire tinder worthy. They're kind of small, so it wouldn't be. You'd probably be using those in conjunction with something else on that theory, but let's walk down this little deadfall pile here and see if it covered something up. Not seeing signs of that, but we're going to go down that tree and come back up along and then move. See if we can find this or not. Because the thing was, it was along a specific enough patch of woods with enough distinctive features. You were going to find it again, and I did intend to follow up on that, but it's been 2 weeks. So in the course of 14 days, 12 to 14 days rather, I won't commit to an exact number, but it looks, they're like, well, you're looking like for piles of things looking like that. That's what we're looking for, and I'm not seeing them. And this deadfall doesn't look that recent. I mean, there's a shitload of it in here, so there's that, but and we're not talking about a grouping like this. There was like an actual pile of like easily 100 or more of them. It was very, very, very obvious. Somebody had stacked them up, so I'm looking for that. I don't remember it being this far away from the stone wall, though. But we're walking down to be thorough, because I'm just kind of eager to kind of see if I can figure out what this little weird forestism is. It's not the mystery of the century, but it's what I have to work with this week, so it's a good research exercise in terms of methodology anyway. But let's continue looking through, because there is an increased amount of pine cones in quantity. But again, you had 3 distinct stacked piles, and I'm not seeing them. And the plan is going to be follow the stone wall down the hill, because that's where they were. One of them was actually on the stone wall, and like I said, I walked up there. I'm not seeing it now. We're going to walk through this. Going to wind through and see if there's an angle we can see on both sides, not to miss anything. And again, I'm not seeing what was here 2 weeks ago. So that is interesting. And again, not to beat the dead horse, you kind of have to go back 2 weeks to the video that I have yet to post, that I will. But my Facebook post had pictures of the things I'm referring to, and I get poked in the eye. The piles are big enough that all this stuff right here isn't necessarily going to decisively cover it up. I'm just not seeing it. That brings us, let's work over here, back towards, I remember something like that specifically being right here too. And the wall goes down the hill there and then does a junction. We didn't go that far last time. We were going to, but we found a weird find and got more drawn into that. Just curious why that would have been done. There's some bear poo or something there. Let's keep working our way along the stone wall and see if we can locate them. I'm using the wall again because one of the 3 piles was actually on the wall, which would be a very obvious marker. Now I'm not seeing it, which I may be up too high on the line, because I don't remember it being this hard to walk through either, so, or that break. I think it's on the lower end of this, but I want to work the whole wall to be complete. And I'm also thinking I need to go around this thing too, because you're not going to get there easily from here, so I got to go back through this crap now. Yay. So we'll do that. Another deviation from the straight line method, but that's all right. They definitely weren't in drying up ferny shit like this either. Excuse me. And they were opening up like this, which is what you want for the fire tender. So I'm reinforcing my predominant theory in this. I don't remember a church near here. Church bells. No, I'm not seeing it. And we're getting to that point where the wall intersects with the line of the wetland, which would be bog number 3 of the tri-bog area. So let's realign with the wall. And we definitely already passed this area. I'm starting to really conclude that they have been gathered up and made off, and that really would reinforce the living crap out of the whole the fire tender theory. It's the only reason that would make sense why somebody would be stacking up pine cones in the first place, really. Unless somebody out there in comment land would like to point out a different foraging use for them. I mean, you could have some kind of a crafting thing too, I guess, but I mean, whoever took these took like several hundred in 3 big piles. That really leans more for bulk, and bulk would point towards fire tinder, in my opinion. So, not really an earth-shattering thing if that's what it turns out to be, but again, it's a good investigative exercise to indulge in. I can't compare this to the Cull situation because I don't know enough about what he found, or I know one detail that he had shared with me, but it doesn't really do much to spell out much. It doesn't give anything away, put it that way, when I get home, but that points to the fact we've run out of territory for the pine cones to be in, and they're gone. So the winner, until proven otherwise, is fire tinder. So be it. Because if it ends there, then it goes down the line here. And we were definitely in parallel with the stone wall for the find in question, and they're not there now. So and we're parallel with the stream, so we're definitely too far down. So speculative conclusion reached is fire tinder. So we're going to start moving in this direction since 2 weeks later, they're not there anymore. What they basically do, if we conclude that's what the situation is, they'll take pine cones like that when they start to open up. They'll bring them home and they'll let them dry out so they open up more. When they do that, the effect of them burning, if you know what a Swedish torch is, where you have a split open log and the fire starts on the inside and works its way out through the log and burns longer, it almost looks similar to that. Like each little open flap in the pine cone is like a little vent for flames and all that. And the piles were big enough they would have been noticeable. They're definitely not here. Okay. All right, so there's that. Hopefully it was more interesting than the Oklahoma finger pointing nonsense, because that's pretty much everything I'm aware of that comes out of Oklahoma from that group. I mean, like, this is a pile here, but this is naturally occurring. What was there was clearly stacking, so not the same thing. And I'm going to follow this down because you'll pick up on the remains of an old ATV trail that'll bring you back to the stream where I crossed. And the dilemma for next week is going to be you have more of a preponderance, but this isn't a pile. That's still random. As is this. It was more deliberate. It was an oval-shaped stacked pile. Some over there, some over here, but they're not stacked. And the wall's way up there. They were like right on the wall, so I'm sorry. This isn't the same thing. But when they open up like this, it's like the flames are coming out of here. There may even be some kind of chemical in the pine cones. That's a bit of like an accelerant. There is. There's something sticky on there. Thought I heard something else crunching around in here. Last winter, during the latter part of winter in New England, southern New England, when the snow gets all crunchy, I definitely was walking along and I stopped and you heard crunch, crunch. And it was trying to match my steps, but it stopped like a second too late. And then I went over there and sure enough, there was a buck on the other side of a tree line that was trying to match things and go move with my movement till he was away from me and be sneaky. But he didn't do it quite good enough. Those are fun days out when you get to like play with stuff like that. So yeah, the piles are gone, so okay. Again, if there's somebody out there that knows of another crafting thing people do with pine cones this time of year, please let me know. But for the amount that were in question is in terms of numbers, I think they went to somebody's fireplace or wood burning stove or something. The guy in the tutorial had like a wood burning stove. And apparently pine cones burn rather hot, so he was happy with because he had a heat gauge of some kind on there and it was burning really hot, so. Kind of an interesting thing. Not that this has anything to do with the current subject, but the reason why I didn't get out yesterday, not that you care, but there's our ATV trail. I was getting stuff into the car to head out to do this yesterday when I got my first piece of equipment there, and I turned to lock the door and the damn key broke off and a piece of the key was locked in the door. So I went from heading out to have a good day doing this to needing a locksmith and spending 2.5 hours of my day effectively being homeless, which was not a fun time. By which I mean it royally sucked, and I was not happy about that. Anyway, it was resolved relatively quickly by standard. The thing you should do in a case like this is not what I did, which is forget your goddamn phone, because my phone was locked in. I couldn't call anyone initially either. There was a nice girl that was moving out of our apartment complex that called the emergency maintenance number for me, and if she's out there, Morgan, you're a rock star, my dear. Not to mention, pretty damn cute. Very cute girl, but she was also a sweetheart because she called for me, and I appreciate that. I think I remember telling her that I appreciated her help because she was a good kid for that. And if I were a decade younger, dating her would be kind of fun because she was a real sweetheart. Nice girl. Anyway, if you're my better half, you didn't hear me say that. Anyway, we're going to move on. The pine cones are gone, so if in fact they are being used to burn to heat up somebody's house, enjoy your free energy, buddy, or whoever took them, but they are not. Okay, we're back. This is probably the last segment. I'm going to cover some ground and bridge the stream. Covered a little bit of gossip. Take a segment break. There is suddenly a little bit of a glut of it. My feelings on that situation on the other side and come back Cyberland with all the finger pointing, which again means we'll be it's just a sad reflection by people that have been known bad actors for a long time anyway. For Culls, I hope that turns into something, but I'm going to let it play out. I do agree with his dialing back the initial enthusiasm, though, as it does. His wording was science takes time. Yeah, you definitely have to play the long game. Did you make sure that you don't rush through anything and miss any steps? Because scientific verification is, for all the people out there that are in the woo right now, he's going to do it by the numbers. And I know that's not how some of you do it, but you know what? Fuck you. Okay, just deal with it. If he does come up with any solid evidence to make it a flesh and blood corporeal thingy, all your little wooish freaking theories take that one big hit in the gut. And a good swift kick in the boys. Not that it's hard to do that anyway, but so much for that. We had a little mystery of our own. I'm reasonably convinced it's some form of human foraging thing for people that are probably using them in a wood burning stove as fire tinder. If not, there might be some crafting thing. The other thing I thought of, you might have some old hippie lady that's making freaking wreath, like pine cone wreaths for Christmas or something. I've seen that kind of a thing too, but it was probably more likely than not people, because you don't see people out here every day, but they do know where this is, and you're not so far. The piece of area we're in right now is not so. It's not as large as Vermont, just basically due to the size of the areas and the differences thereof. And it's also why I go in deeper and don't really worry, because I know the connecting points if I should get turned around. As you notice, it's fairly wide open. You can see a ways out, so it's not that hard to walk in a straight line. And if you walk far enough in a straight line, you're going to come out on a road or a trail, any of which I know relatively decently. You might be turned around for a short period of time, but it's not a matter where you're going to be out here for days and days and starving to death. And maybe if you're a dementia patient, but you shouldn't be out here in that condition anyway. But they're not going to mount a freaking helicopter-driven search for you, because you're going to probably find your way out through your own efforts. If you just wander around in circles long enough, you'll hit a trail. Follow it to the other end, and it'll come out somewhere. Because the area, again, just ain't that big. But that does bring us to the end of our time in the field today and the recording thereof. So like, subscribe, add commentary if there is some other use for pine cones that people do this time of year that I haven't hit upon through my own apparent ignorance. Let me know, and or any other commentary you want to. Otherwise, that's going to probably do it for this one, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.